This week's lab is Hooke's law. We will be testing Hooke's law with different rubber band configurations and hopefully understand the difference in rubber bands in parallel and in series. We will also observe the conservation of mechanical energy. For materials, we use a meter stick, a smartphone, a command hook, rubber bands, a water bottle, or something that can hold weight, textbooks, a ruler, and scissors. Before you begin, check out our lab prep videos that go through how to set up the meter stick, mount the smartphone, and use tracker. As always, our first step is preparing your smartphone to take videos as well as preparing the meter stick. Next, we will cut a rubber band with the scissors. Tie one end of the rubber band to the suction cup hook and tie the other end to your object of choice. After cutting the rubber band, we want to tie one end to the hook to fix it to the table. The other end we will tie it to our container. While we have a separate container ready, we will first demonstrate with a water bottle. Initially, we added too much water and the container touched the ground, so we simply remove the water and go from there. Now it's not touching the ground. We can only add so much mass until it touches the ground, so keep that in mind going forward. We switch out the water bottle for the yellow container and it functions the same way. For each trial, you want to measure the initial length of the rubber band or the distance between the two nuts you made. You will also measure the length of the rubber band after mounting the suction cup and hanging the object. Switching to our yellow container, we want to measure the initial length of the rubber band before or after performing the experiment, between each trial. Make sure the rubber band isn't too slack or too stretched when you do so. Next, we hang the object off the table, making sure the rubber band stretches. Add mass to the object and record several trials. You will then change the length of the rubber band by tying it at exactly half the length of the rubber band and recording trials with different masses. Basically, we want to hang the object and add more and more weight to see how it affects the length of the rubber band. When we change the length of the rubber band, we tied up the first end as we usually did. Then, with the remaining length of the rubber band, find the center between the nut and the untied end. This is where we tied our hook. Then hang it off the table as seen here. We will add more mass and see how the length changes as we do so. In the second part of the experiment, we will hang one uncut rubber band from the suction cup hook. Then attach a hook to the object and hang that hook to the bottom of the rubber band. Then record several trials with different masses. The uncut rubber band works similar to two cut rubber bands in parallel. Then we removed some hooks from another suction cup hook and attached it to the bottom of the rubber band. We can attach anything to the hook. We put the yellow container back on and added mass to it. Again, we recorded several trials with different masses. Now in our third part, we make one final adjustment. We hang two rubber bands, separating them with a hook. Then we follow the same steps as the other trials, recording several trials with different masses. With the setup from the previous part, we have the uncut rubber band hanging from the suction cup hook. We also have a hook at the bottom of the rubber band. We will introduce a second rubber band to simulate the rubber bands in series. At the bottom of this rubber band, we have a third hook and the object in which we simply add mass to and record for different trials. This then, when we use tracker, we aren't interested in any sort of motion. Instead, we are just using tracker to measure the length of the rubber band, as a physical ruler would be subject to more error, and our data will be more consistent. Load in your file, then set a length scale. Now we can use the tape measure feature of Tracker. Drag one end of the tape measure to the top of the rubber band fixed to the table. Then drag the other end to the bottom of the rubber band. You will repeat this with the cut rubber band, the uncut rubber band, and the two uncut rubber bands in series. Some potential sources of error could be from the rubber band touching the side of the table or touching the ground. As always, make sure the smartphone is mounted correctly. That's all for this week's lab. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask your TA or professor.